But today I want us to get even into a bigger intergenerational emotional system that's been quietly shaping our relationships for decades up to date. And today I want us to focus more on men lacking emotional awareness and emotional literacy. And I say this with a lot of grace and kindness, so listen to this without being emotional about it. For a long time, masculinity has been defined by provision and not the presence of a man. So a good man was the one who paid rent, who put food to the table, who paid fees, who maintained authority. But emotional attunement, a man who is able to sit with his emotions and being able to manage other people's emotions, those things were never in the curriculum. And so what happened? Boys grew up watching their fathers who are physically present but emotionally absent, and they saw the mothers carrying the emotional burdens alone, conversations being dismissed or minimized, conflict being handled through silence, anger, or even withdrawal. And these are behavioral and relational patterns that now the boy child is picking up by seeing. And so when children don't question these patterns and they're just internalizing it and adapting to that environment, the boy child learns that love is provision, emotions are noise, and my role is to survive and not to connect. So what we're seeing here is a behavioral conditioning of what the boy child actually learned, that men don't cry equal to emotional suppression, be strong equal to emotional isolation, handle it equal to lack of relational processing, women talk too much, it led to emotional invalidation. So by the time he's becoming a husband, he's not refusing emotional responsibility, he's actually unequipped. Guys, these are skills. So when the wife or the girlfriend to this man brings emotional needs, he experiences an overwhelm because he lacks emotional language. He feels the threat because he's vulnerable and he's feeling unsafe around this environment. Remember, he's not cultured or conditioned or even made to learn to understand how to navigate it. And he also feels inadequate because he doesn't know how to fix it. So what does he do? He withdraws, he shuts down, he becomes defensive, or he labels you as too much. And let's go through it. You see, when a woman is entering a relationship, she's hoping for emotional safety, partnership, being seen, being heard, being held. Kuna wazazi sahi, hata the last time they held hands, it's unheard of. Like, if you're called babe or my sweetheart, it feels like this is the world coming to an end. But when she gets in marriage, she meets silence, she meets dismissal, she meets emotional unavailability, so she adapts. At first it feels like she needs to explain herself, she needs to keep asking, she needs to try out to reach to this person. But when those needs go unmet repeatedly, something shifts internally and she begins to feel unseen, unvalued, emotionally abandoned. And over time, this turns into resentment, into bitterness, into emotional withdrawal or aggression that looks like defense. Every time she's always defending herself. And that's why we feel like we have so many angry women in our society. But it's not because they were just angry people. It's a result of prolonged emotional neglect. Can you imagine getting married to someone who barely says hi to you, who barely caters to your needs, who barely tells you you're beautiful, who barely appreciates any effort that you make? Everything that you do is never right. You're always nagging you too much. If you're constantly feeling like that as a person, I think that helps us to see that these women also took withdrawal as a way of self-preservation so that they cannot continue feeling the hurt consciously. Realize that this is a generational loop that's now become systemic, because now the child, we grow up in this environment and observe. Boy child is seeing a father who provides but does not connect, a mother who is resentful, distant, or emotionally overwhelmed. And what do they internalize? For the sons, they learn that emotional distance is normal, women are too hard to please, and providing is enough. But for the daughters, they learn that love requires endurance, emotional needs may not be met, and you must overfunction for you or suppress yourself for your needs to be met. And this cycle continues and continues, and that's why we are struggling even in relationships currently. So where I stand, and that's where the real issue is we are not just looking at a situation of lacking accountability, we're also seeing a situation of lacking capacity, because it's not just women lacking accountability or just men being emotionally unavailable. It is realizing that many women are reacting from accumulated emotional wounds and many men are functioning from the emotional underdevelopment. So what we're dealing with is a wounded expression versus a limited capacity. So when these two people are meeting, relationships become battlegrounds instead of safe space. Why do I highlight all these things? So that we can stop identifying with the behaviors that we've been normalizing over the period of time because of the conditioning that we've also experienced. And we're not doing this to excuse the behavior, but to understand it deeply so that we're able to transform it. And we can stop looking at each other as though we are in gender wars and realize that we've been conditioned to be showing up the way we are. And you realize that true accountability must include awareness of personal behavior and awareness of formative conditioning. And this conversation that we're having is asking ourselves, how do we raise then emotionally aware men? How can we then help women to heal from the years of emotional deprivation? How do we then break the patterns instead of repeating them? How can we create safety and capacity in us as women, knowing how to handle or hold space for men's emotions, and men learning the same for the women? Because what men need is emotional education, the language for their feelings, having a safe space to be vulnerable, and having models of emotionally present masculinity. And what women need is healing from resentment and emotional exhaustion, to reconnect to their soft strength, because sometimes softness is associated a lot to weakness, and we're not talking about suppression here, by the way. And also learning that boundaries are not rooted in pain but in self-respect. And so we are not just dealing with difficult women or emotionally unavailable men, we are dealing with generations of people who were never taught how to love beyond survival. And until we teach emotional responsibility, emotional awareness, emotional regulation, and everything to do with emotional intelligence and presence, we will keep raising boys who don't know how to feel and women who are tired of feeling alone in relationships. And I don't think that's what we want. I hope you learned something. That is all for today.